Good morning.
Yes, thumbs up. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
Excellent. Well, guess what? Me too. Uh, yeah. Okay. So a little bit different here. We're going to get to the questions. We have a few. Very, very nice to see you and welcome everybody who'll be coming up or watching the replays. Um, Here is dear Dr. David Rosensweet, and I'm Carolyn. And there we have it. All right, question number one. As I always say, are you ready?
I'm ready.
No, you are. All right. I am 62, postmenopausal. I'm taking the estrogen patch, but I'm also taking estrogen vaginally for vaginal atrophy. I do take testosterone, and I'm wondering if Dr. Rosensweet feels that it's necessary for me to also be taking progesterone.
Well, good start. You're getting some good estradiol. You're actually attending to the kind of vaginal changes that take place without estrogen. You're on the right track. And I'm sorry, Carolyn, did I hear she was taking testosterone as well?
Yes.
This is really good because adding in that testosterone is not something that every single provider does, but it's
Kind of wrong. Yeah.
absolutely essential to women. And so this questioner has a really good start. And in answer to her question, yes, progesterone is also a very important hormone. I mean, women have, when you're young and menstruating regularly, and when you're ovulating, you have 100 times as much progesterone produced by your ovary as you do estrogen. So there's obviously a need for it, and those needs are really pretty well understood and have been for 40, 50 years. And they include progesterone is the great calming, very unusual hormone. Hormones are very strong. They're the strongest biochemicals in our body, and most of them are energizing and are capable of basic functions, but they're also capable of being recruited, if needed, for fight or flight biochemistry. If you're being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, you got to energize. Progesterone's progesterone's different. It's a quieting hormone. The only other one I know of is melatonin, hormone-wise, and that means progesterone has a lot to do with mood. So a lot of women who go into the perimenopause have anxiety and depression that can be addressed primarily, not often as the only thing, but by giving adequate progesterone. Now, there's many moving parts to possible anxiety and depression, so I'd never want to infer that that's the only thing that it's related to. No way. But a lot of women get major back on track mood-wise, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, simply by adding in progesterone. Well, our brains need progesterone. Women's brains really need progesterone, just on a biologic level, to function properly. Progesterone is the only substance that I know that inspires the osteoblasts, those cells that lay down new bone, which we're doing constantly our whole life, breaking down old bone, laying down new bone. Progesterone is the only substance I know that inspires osteoblasts to do their good work. So as far as preserving the bones, progesterone is really important. Sleep. A lot of women, when they start losing their progesterone, they start losing sleep. There's other reasons to losing sleep in the perimenopause. I mean, women who get depleted estrogens are going to lose their sleep as well. However, progesterone, boy, we like to turn to that really quickly. And getting the right dose of progesterone can help restore a woman's sleep. Anyone who's lost a night's sleep or 2 or 3 or 10 knows the life consequences of that one. So these are extremely important functions. And there's some old information that I hold to be very inaccurate, and I highly challenge that a woman who has a hysterectomy, and I'm forgetting, Carolyn, did you say that this woman had a hysterectomy?
I did not.
Okay.
She's just postmenopausal, but no, plenty of women who have had hysterectomies.
Yeah. So worth addressing that, because women who have had hysterectomies are told, well, you don't need progesterone. And they're thinking in terms of progesterone's primary function being helping to ensure that the endometrial lining does not get too thick and bleed. And yes, it does that too. I should have mentioned that right up front, the importance of balancing the estrogen stimulating effect to the uterine lining with the progesterone preventing that uterine lining from getting too thick so that a woman bleeds. So, but the old information is that if a woman had a hysterectomy, she doesn't have a uterus, so she no longer needs progesterone. Well, that information has been supplanted to me without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, without a molecular shadow of a doubt. Every woman is going to benefit by progesterone. Yes, get progesterone, and we actually recommend that a woman maximize progesterone. That's different than the word optimize. They're one and the same, but optimization of progesterone in this instance is, can you get really rich levels while not getting symptoms of progesterone overdose? Because progesterone's powerful. So a woman who takes too much progesterone at night often wakes up the next morning feeling like she had taken an overdose of a sleeping pill. She got too calm, so to speak. So we like to march progesterone dosages right up to the maximal amount a woman can feel good with. And if she goes over the top and feels groggy the next morning or starts feeling dizzy or lightheaded or simulating being drunk but she hadn't drank any alcohol, that's progesterone overdose. Or if she gets depressed, some women get depressed when they take too much progesterone. It's too calming, so to speak. Well, we back down from that. We don't want to overdose of anything, but we like to maximize the dose of that progesterone. So should you take progesterone? Yes, and yes, and yes.
I think that would be a yes.
I must have gotten my point across, because you just said that you think I was meaning yes.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. That would be a
Having
yes.
said that, there's a very few number of women that it's a challenge getting progesterone in, and there's various reasons for that. Very few, very rare, but it does happen where women don't seem to tolerate progesterone. Well, there's all kinds of workarounds, and that's a subject for another day. To learn more about progesterone, I highly recommend that you read our book, Happy Healthy Hormones, that we wrote for women. And there's possible upgrades to your estrogen and testosterone to optimize those dosages and the forms in which you're taking them. But good going. You're off to a great start. Getting a patch, getting some extra vaginal estrogen, that's so worth doing. You shouldn't have to do that forever. There should come a time that the vaginally applied estrogen should do such good restoration that by 3 to 6 months, you can tell the difference, especially if you're having intercourse. And the estrogen that you're getting by your other method, in this case, it's the patch, should be rich enough that it'll totally give you enough estrogen to protect the vagina and prevent any loss of vaginal health. But good going. You're off to a great start there. Carry on. Now you can refine it. You got decades maybe to refine it. Get it
Yeah,
good. So read Happy Healthy
exactly.
Hormones, and there's a few suggestions in there. But at this point, just add progesterone.
Okay. Thank you so much for that answer. That's a really good positive answer. I love that. This is an interesting question to me. I looked it up again and again and again. Can a woman take, I can never pronounce it, pregnenolone and not progesterone? Pregnenolone seems to have amazing benefits. So why not just take it and omit the progesterone?
Yeah, lots of folks have had that idea, and my answer is don't. Don't take pregnenolone for that purpose. I've
Sorry, in addition.
tried to suggested a lot of pregnenolone, but not for the purpose of getting a sufficient progesterone. And here's why.
But can I ask really quickly, because I think this is her, she wrote pregnenolone in addition to progesterone.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. And but I'd like to zero in on it because it's a great topic. It's a great question. In biochemistry in our body, how things work chemically is you take one thing and your body transforms it to another, and that your body then takes that thing and transforms it to the next step, and then your body takes that chemical and transforms it to the next chemical. So you might eat some butter, for example, and it's going to take the cholesterol in that butter, and it's going to convert that cholesterol to pregnenolone. And pregnenolone, one could think of it as the great grandmother hormone because it has some activity to it. Not necessarily hormonal activity, but it's definitely got some hormonal activity. Then your body takes that pregnenolone and converts it to progesterone. And then your body takes that progesterone and converts it and converts it and converts it. And everything comes originally from the butter or the cholesterol in the butter. It's really cholesterol. Um, so I've thought, well, along the lines of saying, why not take pregnenolone to create progesterone? I say, well, why not take butter and let your body do the heavy lifting? Because it's unpredictable. What we
Ah,
don't have control over is what your body's going to do with that pregnenolone. Is it going to eventually funnel it down to where it's producing lots of estrogen? Or is it going to funnel it down a different pathway where it's going to produce lots of DHEA and testosterone? Or is it going to build up the progesterone and the cortisol, but it's not going to, because there's junctions in these roads, in these pathways, and I don't see any way of controlling that. So it's someone's guess that if you take pregnenolone, it's going to produce the right amount of estrogen, the right amount of testosterone, the right amount of progesterone, and the right amount of the corticosteroids, because they all come from that. There could be an experiment that could be done where a woman in menopause could just take pregnenolone and let her body do the work. Now, what I would recommend is, number one, if you're correct, it's going to alleviate symptoms. It's going to alleviate hot flashes. It's going to prevent the decline of muscle strength that's dependent on the androgens, and on and on and on and on. Yeah, you could sort of test it by symptoms, but what I do is I go on pregnenolone for 3 months and then do a 24-hour urine hormone test, because that's going to be the final answer. That's going to tell us whether your theory of taking pregnenolone is going to give you the optimal amount of each one of these very important chemicals. Testosterone, estriol, progesterone, DHEA. Did your theory pan out? I don't think I never wanted to do that study with women. By the time they come to me in perimenopause and menopause, they're in a certain amount of duress. And I didn't want to do this brand new experiment, especially since we've got the actual pure form, i.e., bioidentical, same molecular structure of the ovarian hormones. And we can get highly specific about what we give a woman, and we can dial it in so that ultimately we see on the 24-hour urine hormone test that, yeah, wow, the woman feels really good. And look at that. It's replicating the balances that we see in younger women. We're not trying to reinvent the woman. So right out of the gate, I knew pregnenolone was a possibility, but I thought, I'm not going to do it. I am going to give a woman the parent hormone and get her levels up. And I think that's the best medicine that we can do. And having said that, in World War II, they gave, as a scientific medical experiment, they gave pregnenolone to certain groups. They want to see what was its effect. And who they choose to give it to? Airplane pilots and factory workers. And there's studies out on this. And they showed that these people were more alert, more cognitively efficient. Not bad occupations to get more alert and more cognitive.
I'm going to be carrying it in my pocket the next time I fly for the pilot. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, stop by and knock on the door there and say, "Here, take this pill."
Please.
And if you have extraordinary visions, I must have given you the wrong one. And when I reached in,
Oops.
you'll be well received.
Yeah, and maybe not here. I don't know.
Although they may be escorted out to the special section off
Yeah.
here.
No, I'm always escorted out to the special section. That's funny.
So, like for any patient, male or female, that has cognitive decline, well, if they're in menopause or perimenopause, my first job is to help replenish the ovarian hormones to their optimal levels. And if they get 100% of their cognition back or cognition back to satisfactoriness, I don't think of giving them extra work to do or extra things to take. But let's say we get those hormones really replenished and balanced to optimal levels, and they still got some cognitive issues. There's more tools to help with the cognition. And one of the simple tools is try pregnenolone and see if their cognition improves. So you're getting the direct benefits of pregnenolone alone without relying on it to produce the optimal amount of progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, etc. When you look at these biochemical pathways, you could think, well, okay, I'll be more specific. I won't give pregnenolone. I'll just give progesterone, which is the next step down line. And I'll just give progesterone, and progesterone will be converted to estrogen, and testosterone doesn't happen. Knowing that, that's why I would never give pregnenolone, because when we give progesterone alone, it is not going to raise in an adequate way a woman's hormones that progesterone can be converted to, which includes the estrogens and testosterone and the corticosteroids. Same thing with DHEA. That's further on down that line, assembly line. DHEA is here, and out of that can come estrogen and can come testosterone. But we don't give DHEA for the purpose of getting optimal levels of estradiol, estrone, or testosterone. No, we don't do that. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be the proper conversion. So in answer to your question, pregnenolone can be good on its own, but don't rely upon it to replenish your hormones. Now, you might do the scientific experiment and see if you could achieve that. I would be fascinated by that. Someone who wants to take the time and put in the money to see, okay, I'm just going to take pregnenolone and see if I produce optimal hormones. No harm, no foul.
It looks pretty attractive, I'll tell you, when you go to Dr. Google, really.
But, that's fine, but you can hear that I'm not recommending that.
Yeah, and
these ovarian hormones, they're so important for the long list of functions that we list in Happy Healthy Hormones, and it's all over Google and every book that's ever written about menopause. And the consequences of not having them, not having estrogen, not having testosterone, not having progesterone, these are dramatic, unbeneficial consequences. And some of the worst things that people fear about, quote, aging, and things that wind people up in assisted living facilities and nursing homes and dementia. So much of it is, not all of it, but so much of it is caused by insufficient ovarian hormones in women and insufficient testosterone in men. So it's not a great place to experiment. If pregnenolone was the only tool I had, I would take it. But anyway, great question.
It is a great question, and thank you for the correction. I apologize for asking it incorrectly. Um, and thank you
Also,
so.
if this Facebook user wants to do the experiment, and I could give some advice on how to test through 24-hour urine hormone testing, because gee, if it turned out that that worked, that could be a practical solution to the challenges these days of getting good treatment and the threat that we're under that these things are going to be taken away, period. And Facebook users, be on the alert. Follow us on cbhrtcoalition.org. We may need to call upon you to contact your congressional person to help protect access to these amazing bioidentical hormones. And anyway,
There you have it.
next, there you have it.
There you have it. Okay, I'm gonna go to this question here. I have been told to stay away from estrogen, period, as I have SIBO. Would having SIBO be a reason to not take any estrogen at all? I've been told that estrogen will hamper the healing of SIBO.
Okay, I hear that question, and I'm going to challenge it. My opinion is wrong answer. You're given the
From
wrong.
whomever gave it.
I'm not here to be mean to anybody, but one of the things about hormonal medicine and treating women in menopause and perimenopause, unlike almost any other field I encounter, there is so much misinformation out there.
Yeah.
And the reason there is the whole field got stunted by that false reporting of a study. So it's the Wild West, and that's part of it right there.
Yep.
These hormones that are in our bodies, and let's say a young woman's body, for example, they are really critical. They're so critical that the absence of them has multitude of consequences. The idea is get the right amount, do it right, be healthy, and get the right balance. And a young, healthy woman has got that. Oh, it might not be perfect because there's reasons why hormone levels and balances can be thrown off. But in general, a young, healthy woman, health is best supported by the right amount of estrogens and progesterone and testosterone and DHEA and thyroid and etc. And without those, without the estrogen, for example, the immune system doesn't even function as well. There's scientific evidence that women who have adequate estrogen, their immune systems do much better with COVID even.
Yeah.
That's not the final answer. Heck no. I mean, there's so many different moving parts there. But you don't want to mess with a woman's hormonal balance and the output of her ovary if you can all avoid it, because it's the healthiest situation. Let's take another example. Let's say that men's testosterone turns off. That's going to make them more vulnerable to everything. Nothing's going to work as well. The internal bacterial balance of the gut also relates to the immune system. If you don't have a healthy immune system, one of the places you can go awry is the abnormal bacterial patterns that can arise from lack of health and vitality and a lack of a proper immune system. So, wrong information. Now, having said that, women who have major imbalances, like women who are overtreated with estrogen, that means overdosed, you get vulnerabilities from overdose of these powerful hormones. You name the hormone, you do an overdose, there's some vulnerabilities that happen because the body likes the balance and the right amount. The body does not like too much. Like if someone is low in thyroid and you overtreat them with thyroid hormone, oh, you went in the right direction. You started to replenish the thyroid hormone, but you wound up giving them too much. Man, bad news. You're going to cause some real trouble. Of course, the hormones are so strong that the people don't like the too much thyroid, so they usually talk up about it. So it's pretty hard to overdose someone on thyroid because it's so strong. The overdose symptoms are so obnoxious that you don't do that. Well, it's the same is true for every hormone. You give someone too much of these most powerful biochemicals, you don't do well. Now, women can get too much estrogen natively. For example, when we think of fight or flight and being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, we need extraordinary powers to fight or run.
Exactly. And it happens like that. It's crazy.
And we have to do an internal biochemical mobilization to ramp up the energy production and the power and vitality to do that. And most people who study the biology of the stress response know for certain that the first thing that happens is you increase your adrenaline and your cortisol. These are extremely energizing. You could handle a saber-toothed tiger.
You can lift a car.
You can do that. At least lift it off something.
Yeah.
And but those aren't the only hormones that are operative in the biology of the fight or flight. We want to mobilize every powerful biochemical we can. And it turns out that estrogens, testosterone, these are energizing. And they can be recruited to fund the fight or flight biochemistry. And one of the clearest examples we ever see of this is watching the Olympics and seeing the young women athletes that are so astounding to watch. Well, they have to do these rigorous training programs that stretch their bodies to the max. And so they're going to mobilize or over-mobilize everything they got going to be able to do that pole vault or run that race or the gymnastics. And they're recruiting their adrenaline and their cortisol and their estrogens and their testosterone all the time. So much so that a lot of those young women, instead of the estrogen going down the menstruation pathway, the female pathway, no, it's been diverted. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's being diverted down the stress pathway to the extent that a lot of these young women don't have libido because the testosterone in the estrogen is being diverted and they don't have periods. So you can ramp up your estrogen, and if your progesterone is declining, you can get an imbalance of the estrogen and progesterone. These are not long-term sustainable health promoting activities. And the gut and SIBO and the immune system can all be thrown off. SIBO is an abnormal bacterial growth in your intestinal tract. Shouldn't be there, or the wrong stuff is in there. Well, how does that happen? Well, the immune system's not working right. For one thing, it should identify the right stuff and the good stuff. Well, the immune system, in order to function properly, needs a lot of energy. In fact, it's tremendously energy. Anyone who's had the flu, for example, all they want to do is lie in bed because the body knows how to divert all the energy that it can to the immune system. Well, if you're sucking up that energy through your stress pathways and you're amplifying it with abnormal hormone levels that are diverting away to the health of the immune system, you get widespread not good stuff. So I think the interpretation is very incomplete, so incomplete that it leads to false information. Moral of the story, if a young woman has too much estrogen, either through the stress response or not enough progesterone to balance it, it all comes down usually that she's being thrown off by stress. And yes, that's going to aggravate any infection in the body. It's going to aggravate SIBO. But to take that information and say a woman shouldn't get estrogen who's got SIBO, wrong. Just the right amount. Don't overdose somebody. You get a woman in menopause or the perimenopause when their estrogen is declining, and you say, well, you've got SIBO, we don't think you should have estrogen. That is a medical error on my part. So this whole thing needs to be straightened out, but you have a lot of people forming these opinions that aren't really specializing in hormones and the immune system. So I don't know where some of these things come from. Where these get these ideas that woman shouldn't have estrogen if she has SIBO. No, she
Yeah.
needs estrogen for health. Does she need too much estrogen? No. Just like a man doesn't need too much testosterone. There's going to be a problem. You give a man too much testosterone, there's this long series of problems that happens from that. Biological, not to mention other possible problems, biological problems that happen to the men. Too much. Give a man too little, whoops, that's a problem too. Give a woman too much estrogen, either through overdosing her or a ramped up stress response that just won't quit, that's causing her to raise her estrogens, if she's young enough to do it, it's going to be a problem. These aren't fatal illnesses, and bottom line, if there is too much estrogen, you want to ask why. And what you're going to learn is there's too much stress, and that's wrong. It's not that there's too much stress. Human life has stress as a natural part of it, but the response to the stress is not functional. So the moral of the story is you go out, reach out with great courage and great commitment to find the information, tools, and support to acquire skills with your own emotions and with the challenges of life, so that instead of reacting to the challenge of life and feeling defeated by it, you can rise up and do great stuff. One of my beloved partners, he is the beacon for this. He's learned in his life that stress makes us strong if we know how to embrace it properly. And over again, I've seen in challenging situations, he just rises up. So at any rate, it's not the estrogen, folks. Too much estrogen, either recruited from the stress response or overdose, that's a problem.
Yeah, but it's not going to create SIBO, is it?
No, it's not going to create SIBO, but it can dysregulate the immune system, and
Right.
abnormal bacteria can overgrow, but SIBO's got other moving parts as well. The excess cortisol itself can suppress the immune system and throw things off. So the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone.
One thing you always say that I really, really love, and that is that just about anything, in time, or I don't know how you say it, but you say there's someone out there that can heal it. you know?
Yeah, good point, Carolyn. Healing is possible. And when you're in the throes of not feeling well, or have been thrown a diagnosis that just scares you so much,
Oh,
I encourage everybody, go on the search, because I have heard so many stories, and I've got a few of my own, where it was so hard in the moment to feel anything but helpless. And like it was impossible, which is an
yeah.
illness unto itself. That's a diagnosis unto itself. It's one of the things that we here on earth to identify, raise into consciousness, and heal is helplessness that we come to earth with. It's a bona fide, honorable thing that can come up, and we want to get skilled at it. But what I encourage you is, no matter what that diagnosis you have, go on the journey. There's some information, tools, and support out there that can just shake you up, because you can heal.
Yes.
You can change your life. It's like a miracle when you discover it, and the bottom line is so many people on this earth have had experiences, and they know, it's not a theory, that healing is possible, even when it seemed like it was impossible. So be one of those folks. If you got challenges, reach out. There's support. You should, people should, I have a team of people that I turn to deal with the various issues that I deal with, health-wise and life-wise. It takes a village to pull off this human life.
Yes, it does. And I think you've done it absolutely beautifully well. If a woman finds she has fibroids, is it okay to take estradiol? I also have cysts, and I just appreciate your thoughts. I don't know if hormones are a great thing to do if I do have fibroids.
Yeah, I love the complexity of these questions.
Yeah.
And I may jump to say that what this particular woman needs is to meet up with a healthcare provider, a medical doctor, a nurse practitioner, that this is what they do day in and day out. They really understand fibroids. They really understand hormones, and get under their care. And, like in our group, we have functioning medicine trained gynecologists. And the job of the questioner is to find someone who really cares about this and is a professional and has gotten the training and is getting the mentoring and the guidance and knows how to follow the bouncing ball of something that can seem so mysterious. That's the job. Find that person. Go shopping. Find them. Now, having said that, what in the heck causes fibroids? Well, on a biological level, one thing we know is it can be an imbalance of the estrogen and the progesterone. That the uterus gets overstimulated. Like, for example, every single month, the uterus gets stimulated primarily by estrogen. And that stimulation does a bunch of things, including forming an endometrial lining that you menstruate. And it also gets calmed down by progesterone. And one of the causes of fibroids is estrogen dominance. That for whatever reason, there's more estrogen present in relationship to progesterone, and you get overstimulation of breast glandular tissue, so you get increased breast density, or you could get it of the uterus, and you could get a fibroid. A fibroid is a benign tumor. It is not cancer. It can be a hassle because they can grow pretty big or not. A lot of women have fibroids. They don't even know it. Or some women are getting a little heavier periods, and the fibroid's the cause. But the cure for fibroids is menopause.
Sorry.
You no longer have that hormonal imbalance. You no longer are getting overstimulation of the fibroid, and eventually they shrink. Now, as the hormones are declining, one could make a strong case called my whole professional life staked upon this. Everything I do for 50 hours a week for the last 55 years is staked on this one. As the hormones are declining, that's not a healthy situation. Oh yeah, you may be on the way to improving your fibroid because you're no longer getting rich estrogen, but you don't want the consequence of low estrogen levels. So you work with a healthcare provider that does two things. They replenish your hormones excellently, and they monitor the fibroid. Duh. And same with the uterine cysts. So you need a gynecologist who has a transvaginal ultrasound that can monitor those and other tools as well. And if your gynecologist happens to be really knowledgeable, gynecologists are primarily surgeons, bless them so much. They can do the heavy lifting of surgery when it's called for and do a miraculous job. But there's a fork in the road in the medical profession, and it's well known. Those who love the medicine, the internal medicine, the biochemical, and those who love the surgery. So there isn't a great deal of gynecologists themselves who are fascinated with the biochemistry and the biochemical pathways, and thus are expert in hormones. So you might need a combination of a gynecologist. Now, we have gynecologists on our board. They're fascinated with the gynecology, and they're fascinated with the hormones. They're out there. We got two of them on our medical board of the Institute of Bioidentical Medicine. Thank you very much, Beth and Diane. It's a great people, great doctors, but an expert in hormones. But if the gynecologist has to be knowledgeable about the hormones as well, or you may have to get another provider that's taken on the whole subject of hormones, because all it requires is the right amount of estrogen. You don't want to give too much, you'll overstimulate that fibroid. Is that bad? It's a hassle, but it's not bad. It's not cancer. It's a fibroid. Now, young women vary in the amount of estrogen that they need. Like there's some women, in order to be healthy and regularly menstruating and be fertile, they need this amount of estrogen, so to speak. My hand represents amounts. Some young women need this, whereas other young women need this amount to be healthy, regularly menstruating, and fertile. Wide range. The upper limit of that range is over three times the lower limit. There's a wide variability between women. And yet every woman, either low or high or anywhere in between, they can be young and healthy and fertile. Totally normal. For 95% of the women that we treat in menopause, we recommend the treatment levels are right here. There's technical reasons why they're right there to get all the good jobs done for most, not all, most women. You don't need youthful levels. We don't want youthful levels. We don't want overstimulation. Now, there are exceptions. Why am I saying that? Because we're not playing in fibroid land when we're working just below the lowest of the young women. When we're replenishing estrogen within this zone, we're not pushing the estrogen into the zones that are going to overstimulate.
Right.
The bottom line is every woman at a certain point needs estrogen replenishment, no exceptions, zero. Just like every man at some point needs testosterone replenishing, no exceptions. Oh, you can function. Sometimes you can even walk and talk.
And drink water at the same time. Oh my
I wouldn't say the same thing about thinking.
Yeah.
But you can function as a decline. But the zone that we're playing with, the dosages, is not the estrogen overdose symptoms. They're below young women, for example. So what do you need? You need a healthcare provider that understands fibroids, understands estrogens, knows that there's fabulous tools to evaluate whether that fibroid is becoming more problematic or not. Some fibroids get so big, you have to remove the fibroid or remove the uterus. It happens. Thank God.
Well, have those hormones ready if that happens right by your bedside.
That's right.
Yes.
Betcha. Thank goodness we have surgeons that do their thing.
Yeah.
But at any rate, all it takes is monitoring, right dosages and monitoring, and getting the right progesterone balance in there is very important to balance the stimulation.
So it doesn't really have to be that complicated.
No. And, but you want to turn to experts. It's a shame that if most human beings have car problems, there's a certain percentage of human beings on this earth that when they have car problems, they do it themselves. Even if they have to rebuild an engine, they'll take that engine apart. But that percentage of the population that actually is that skilled and that interested and that fascinated enough to get good at cars is pretty low. I don't know what that number is. It's probably less than 1%. No, most of us, when we have car issues, we want to take it to someone who's worked on their car. That's their profession. They're working on cars 8 hours a day, many days a week. And they have so much experience that they can do the details right. Well, the same is true in medicine. Every single human being can learn everything you need to know to sustain your health and get healthier. You can learn about nutrition. You can learn about toxic exposure and do some detoxification. You can learn about proper exercise. And
Not too much, not too little.
And you can even learn about how to get really functional responding to stress. Everything it takes to really sustain your health of your physical body for your whole life, you can become expert in. It's not rocket surgery. Most of it's pretty intuitive. And there's only a few principles that really matter. Like in the whole world of nutrition, as complex as people make it, you got to eat good food. And in this day and age, you got to do what our ancestors did. They had to eat organic food because there was only organic food around. Just to make it simple. But when it comes to things going awry, like if you're driving your car and you hear this loud knock and you press on the accelerator and you're not getting the punch that you used to get, and you got smoke pouring out of your exhaust pipe, you don't take out a screwdriver and open up your hood and say, I'm going to get in there and fix this thing.
Usually ask your passenger to do that.
You take it to somebody who can evaluate excessive smoke coming out of your exhaust pipe and loud noises coming out of the engine compartment.
Right.
Well, the same is true in medicine, oddly enough. You cross a line where you're just not going to be able to get enough knowledge and experience. I went to medical school. Man, it's one of the most challenging things I ever did in my life. They chock-a-block it full of knowledge. And then we had internships, and then there's residencies, and there's postgraduate training, and they're seeing hundreds and hundreds of patients. It takes a lot. I didn't feel like I got really good at medicine until I was about 40 years into it.
That gives me a lot of hope.
I was good. I could do good, but I didn't have enough experience and I didn't have enough knowledge. So what am I saying? There's a certain point, like fibroids and hormones, that you want to seek out, that your job doesn't become, let me figure this out, or let me go to medical school to get this addressed. Your job becomes one thing, and that's what I led off with. Your job becomes going shopping. And your intention is you're there to find a healthcare provider that this is what they do day in and day out. They love hormones. They've got a license to practice. They can write prescriptions. They can do all the evaluations. They have the knowledge, the training, and the experience to zero in on fibroids. And for them, it's not a big deal. For them, they go, ho hum, another fibroid, you know.
What's for dinner?
Ho hum, ho hum, ho hum. There's another hormone balancing thing to do because it's so routine for them. That's who you want, and that's the job. And it's to go shopping, and it's to do the research that you need to do to find that expert. And with so much can be done by telemedicine that all you got to do is find an expert in your state. And if you need an exam, you can use your primary care provider for the examination part, but you don't even need to be physically present because telemedicine does so much. You can get so much done, especially in the world of hormones. In the world of fibroids, you might have to go to a gynecologist's office. But that's easy because the gynecologists, their training is fabulous. And there's uniform excellence of anyone who's a registered board certified gynecologist in this country. It doesn't mean their bedside manner is perfect. There's some doctors that care more than others, But most people have put the time and energy into becoming a gynecologist. They at least got the technical skills and the know-how. So if you need to get the fibroid monitored, you could do that probably within a mile of your home, or a half-hour drive from your home. But for the hormones, this could be done by telemedicine by anyone licensed in your state. So go shopping. You got fibroids. The fibroid needs to be evaluated, and I highly recommend you get those hormones replenished. And don't be concerned about estradiol or estrogens. Just get it right. Happy Healthy Hormones, our book that Carolyn's posted on the ins and outs of menopause. You can download a free copy of it, and you'll get a real description of what I consider to be excellent medicine.
No, it's great. It's a really, really good book.
So
All
there we
right.
go.
There
I have
we
a
go.
hard stop in 4 minutes, and it'll be a hard stop. So
I'm going to call you Dr. Hardstop from here on in, not Dr. Rosensweet. You're a busy man. I want to thank you so much for being a part of training so many of those physicians, not the obstetrician, the gynecologists and so on, but you're helping us to find people that can help us. And we really, really, really appreciate that. I'm always putting Sherry's name up there. Poor Sherry, I keep her busy like 24/7. So I really want to thank you. I will say that we are moving now to twice a month due to all this training and all this stuff that this wonderful man is doing for all of us, along with his amazing team of a few whom I know and I really care about. So, Dr. Rosensweet, thank you so much for really a very, very nice interview. It was really, really nice. And we'll be here on, guess what? Valentine's Day.
ooh.
I know, huh? Oh. Well, it's 10 for you, it's 7 for me. Nothing's going to be happening for me at 7 a.m. I can promise you that on
All right,
Valentine's
Carol.
Day.
I'm gonna sign off for today. Good to see you as always.
As always, see you later. See you later, everybody.